Welcome to Everyday Martial Artist, a weekly podcast where you'll join me, Brian Doucette, as I interview a different martial artist each episode and hear their story. Some guests you may have heard of, and some you probably haven't. Be sure to subscribe where all your favorite podcasts are available. Also visit our website at everydaymartialartist.com. If you're listening for a specific interview, I sure hope you'll stay and check out the other episodes. A very special thank you to Topher Williams for our custom theme music. And now, the newest episode of Everyday Martial Artist. Everyday Martial Artist is brought to you by KOonline.com for all your martial arts needs. Sparring and safety gear, rank belts, uniforms, weapons, patches, and more. Wholesale supplies made by martial artists for martial artists. Visit us today at ko-online.com. Hello and welcome to Everyday Martial Artist. I'm your host, Brian Doucette, and as we do every week, we're joined by a brand new guest talking about their life and their journey throughout the world of martial arts. My guest today is a martial artist, an edge weapon specialist, and knife designer born in the Philippines who calls upstate New York home. A U.S. military veteran who served in the U.S. Air Force for 8 years and then pursued a career as a respiratory therapist for 20 years, all the while teaching and honing his skills as a martial artist. In addition to developing his own style of Filipino martial arts called Marcaida KEAL, he also traveled all over the United States and the world teaching first responders and military personnel the foundation of his beloved art. You may recognize him as a featured judge on the History Channel's Forged in Fire. Please welcome my guest today, Mr. Doug Marcaida. How are you doing today, Doug?
I am doing great. What an intro. Y'all believe that? I got a bridge to sell you.
I appreciate that, man. Seriously, I truly appreciate your time. I know we've been trying to do this for probably over a year, and I'm glad glad we finally worked it out. I'm glad I was patient.
There you go, folks. Martial arts teaches you perseverance, teaches you patience.
That is
and
right.
Brian did that. So here we are.
Well, what we like to do with all my guests, I mentioned you've been doing this since a young age, but what I want to know is where that started, where that first interest, that first spark came from that kind of kicked off your martial arts journey.
Fighting was always something that I liked to do when I was young. I was an angry kid, came from a broken family. So a lot of my anger was my release because of the things I couldn't, control at a young age, being the eldest with 4 brothers and cousins and everything else. And because of what was happening, I liked to get into a lot of fights. But as a martial artist, it actually came differently. One of the things that was happening, because I was getting kicked out with a lot of fights here and there with grade school. Finally, when I got into high school, my father goes, look, you got kicked out in last school. You like to get into fights, and we have our own issues between ourselves. But he goes, but this time, the people don't fight fairly. It got to the point where once you hit teenage years, everybody carries some kind of shank, some kind of screwdriver, some kind of weapon, some kind of knife. And so because of my attitude toward wanting to get into fights all the time with a bad conduct, I started taking martial arts. Previous to that, I dabbled in it. We had our own little fight club as kids, neighborhood kids, put on gloves, go in there. And my uncles do martial arts. We always fought with our brothers. But traditional classical martial arts, I didn't start out till I was a teenager. Okay. And though I did some kickboxing and some karate style and combat judo with my uncles, it wasn't really the classical training that I got until I actually enrolled in Taekwondo.
Oh, okay.
And that changed everything in my attitude towards fighting. I actually started to get into a discipline, where I had to show up. We had an actual teacher. I brought my classmates, my buddies. We all joined together. And it was just because for my knack of fighting that I actually got to, back home we have a way when you get tested, you get to skip ranks and everything else. You become a leader of your group. And we opened up our own martial art team in the high school I was going. But I fell in love with the martial arts then. And when I first joined, I thought, oh, good, my dad's going to make me learn this so I can kick ass even better. But it started to change. It wasn't about the fight anymore. It was about the discipline and the enjoyment of it. Because before that, I also did a lot of sports. But then I had a sport-related injury that sidelined me from continuing through Taekwondo. So I put that on hold, and then before you know it, I migrated to the U.S. and I joined the military. Okay, that's where we discovered the martial arts again.
So, do you remember offhand which system of Taekwondo that was? Was it like WTF, ITF?
World Taekwondo Federation. The original WTF.
Do you remember which forms you guys did?
Palge.
Nice. You did the Paul Gays. Nice.
Yes. I loved it.
My school still does them. We still do the Paul Gays.
Yes. And I just loved the whole atmosphere, because everybody was, that goes in there. We're fighters, but we had so much respect for each other. We had so much respect for the way people did their forms and their kicks, and it wasn't about the fight. Sparring was an exciting thing to do, but it was never a fear of it, Now, granted, this was an empty hand form of style of fighting, because in the Philippines, what do we have? Filipino martial arts everywhere. I never wanted to learn that. Why? Because to me, what I would see, the Filipino martial arts was about weapons. They train with weapons. Now, I thought, criminals. Why would you want to fight with you should learn how to fight with your hands and your legs. All those learning those weapons are criminals. And, what am I going to do against a knife, and all that? And then, of course, with my background of my childhood, I got accosted with a lot of blades, and I developed an actual form of PTSD toward blades. So I hated knives. I hated weapons. I had a fear of them. Wow. That's why Taekwondo was so freeing for me. But later on, I moved to, when I got back into the martial arts, was while I was in the Air Force. Okay. I actually fell into someone who was doing what I was exposed to in the Philippines, Filipino martial arts. I didn't know that. He was doing empty hands. We were sparring, empty hand. He was throwing me everywhere. I'm like, holy smokes, this is pretty good. I want to learn that. Are you doing? And at that time, Steven Seagal just came out. Mm-hmm. I go, it's just Aikido, Jiu-Jitsu. What are those techniques you're doing? It's like, it's Kali. Ooh, I never heard of Kali. What is that? He goes, it's a Filipino martial art. Wait, whoa. I was born and raised there. What do you mean? Well, in the West, Kali is actually a term coined by those who've migrated from the Philippines all over the world, and they called it Kali because it was different. They mixed in with Western boxing. It was a whole different thing. Because back home, it's called as Arnis and Eskrima. Mm-hmm. Very different. That's what I grew up knowing. Okay. But I never saw the empty hands back home. All I saw were the weapons. Then I was blown away. Then first class goes, you learn, okay, good. Then he pulls out a butterfly knife, right? A balisong and a stick. And I'm like, whoa. I wanted to learn how to fight with my hands. He goes, that's how we start. What? And that's when I realized, hey, let's face your fear. Let's face the blade and let's face it and get better at it. So who knew? I fell in love with it and I became addicted in facing my fear. I instead of being afraid of it, I'm like, I want more.
Who was that first instructor in Kali?
That was Joe Bautista. I recently found him again.
Oh,
trust me, there are hundreds of Joe Bautista there because I've been looking for him on Facebook. But recently, 2 months ago, I finally found him. We met up again after 20 years, and he's still the phenomenal fighter that I always see. There are people you go through your life that no matter what, they don't need martial arts.
Yeah.
They're just born fighters. And to me, martial arts is really not about becoming good at fighting. It's being able to control the true beast, which is you.
Yes.
I think of all my fights, I'd say 98% of the fights I got into, I could have walked away. I got into fights. I could have walked away. So martial arts is what prevents me now from getting into fights. Now I take martial arts because I know I don't want to get it. That's why I don't want to anymore. Mm-hmm. In the old days, it's about the testosterone and all the issues. But through martial arts, I was able to use martial arts to actually, free me from the violence. The act of violence is not even there. I see. So why do you keep training with the weapons? Isn't that violent? He goes, well, okay, I'm a respiratory therapist, right? Mm-hmm. How am I going to be able to avoid respiratory diseases or even cure them or take care of them, right? You have to study it in order to be aware of it so that you can protect against it. Such has martial arts been to me now, where the act of violence is that it's not an act of violence. How many times am I training and doing seminars that everybody's laughing all the time? They've become my best friends.
Yeah.
You're doing a passion that you're sharing together. There's no fighting here. There's no act of violence. We're doing the motions, but it's all laughter. It's camaraderie, right? It's a brotherhood, a sisterhood of doing the arts that you love. Now, yes, they can be violent. Yes, a lot of them are taken from survival systems or things that you do so that you protect those that you love. But you also have full control of it. You see, especially when I started doing martial arts, and I was doing forged fire, there's a KEAL test there because as a military contractor, we had to do KEAL tests and we chopped up and stabbed carcasses. So when I did the show, I didn't know who's going to watch it. I figured, college kids, 25, the beer crowd, what was that, Spike TV crowd, right?
Yep.
Well, it caught on and became a family show. By the third season, I had actually created a catchphrase, it will KEAL. That's because I have an accent, born and raised in the Philippines. And when I got overexcited, the KEAL became KEAL. And people caught on to that one time. So after that, I just couldn't keep saying KEAL in a good conscience, knowing families were watching it. Now, I created an acronym, KEAL, keep everyone alive, because that follows the motto I have with my art. Basically, it's not about how many you hurt, it's about how many you protect. And the act of violence you learn from the practice of the arts doesn't necessarily it's ever used without responsibility. Mm-hmm. I know how to be violent, but I am not.
Nice.
It's the same token when we talk about weapons, right? Oh, that's a dangerous weapon. I got a lot of weapons right here in my wall. They're not killing anybody right now. It's until I pick up with it, or anybody, right? It's like sitting there by itself, it's not dangerous. It's the person who picks it up that makes it dangerous. It doesn't matter what's in your hands. What matters is what you do with it.
Right. So how long did you stay with Joe? How long was he your instructor?
Oh, short time.
Oh, okay.
A short time. Joe had no patience. He couldn't stand how stiff I was, how uncoordinated I was. He goes like, dude, I can't teach you. I begged him. He could not handle it. He gave up.
Nice.
I had to after that, and then he got stationed to a different base. But he left an impression. I think I only had like 3 lessons with him, but we hung out together. We were buddies. We hung out together. Okay. I got into fights even with him in there. And but no, he couldn't handle how I was. I'm like, I'm not teaching you Kali, man. Stick to whatever thing you do. Brawl, keep brawling. You're fine.
Wow. So then what was next? Where did you find your next instructor?
We were close to El Paso, where I found someone who taught Filipino martial arts, but they brought in another famous, grandmaster by the name of Edgar Solite.
Okay.
And he blew my mind. I mean, my God, that's the Kali I was looking for. So I was learning a Komjuka Kali. This lady was amazing, but the real because it was very much like karate, right? Mm-hmm. I wanted the pure Kali. So when she brought Edgar Solite over, he opened my eyes to the art. And every time he came, I'd study from him, but I would start asking, who should I study from? And he gave me his instructors' names, and he pointed out Leo Gahe and Danny Santo. So those are the people I was seeking, but I had no access to them. I was just in the military. What I did have access to were videos. Okay. And so I started learning from videos because of my and I started training on my own just to get a good base of what I was doing. Mm-hmm. Never was able to fine tune because later on when I did find a teacher that I got to study underneath with all the time, there were a lot of corrections that needed to be done, but I still had a good base. Okay. And that's why I keep telling people, don't wait for an instructor to show up, especially today with the internet and books and videos. You can train yourself. I mean, think about it. Everything really is self-taught. When you have a teacher in front of you, well, it's still you absorbing what the teacher is showing you. No different in videos, no different in books. You have to put the time in to get good at it. So it's self-taught. Everything is self-taught.
Okay, and then you did this all throughout the military, where you were training with videos and books.
I would travel. After that, I got stationed in Mississippi. I attended the Danny Santo seminar. Boy, was I a fanboy! Nice. And while at that seminar in Louisiana, I asked, "Is there anyone here that you can recommend?" And he pointed out Omar Hakim, who was from New Orleans. And I approached Omar, and it so happens that Omar studied under Leo Gahe, the rec student, and he knew of Edgar Solite. They knew each other. So he took me in, and I was just in heaven because finally I'm learning my ancestral art and from someone that's not even a commercialized school. Mm-hmm. We are going old school backyard. In the backyard, no uniforms, no testing, just show up with an open mind and we're going to train. And our training is old school. 6 hours. Yeah, I gave up my weekends to train with this. And we're out in the backyard doing, a lot of drills and all these things that were pretty much the way I saw Filipino martial arts supposed to be, right? It wasn't never created as a martial art for commerce, where it's uniforms, classroom, classical, all that. Nah, it's like straight to the point. You want to survive? Come train with us. And he would show us videos of his training with his instructor. He would just go in there. He was in college, put the camera on, and they trained for 6 hours. They recorded everything. And I saw the how do you say this? The instinctive way of the way the teacher was teaching him, right? Pick up something. Okay, I'm going to teach you this. I'm going to teach you that. Okay, I'm going to do repetition. Now we're going to spar with it. Just that stuff. And I ate it. I was hungry for it. And I finally found it, and I got addicted to it.
Wow. That is cool. And I can hear the passion in your voice still talking about it. That's so cool. Yeah.
Because, you know what? A lot of times growing up, I watched a lot of Shaolin and Kung Fu movies.
Yep.
Your Saturday Kung Fu things. But they always had these, you know, traditional in the mountains, and the monk finds you and show you different ways of training. And then later on, you find out how to fight with it. That's what was going on with us. Now, my instructor, Omar Hakim, he was a smart guy because basically, you know, he would tell us like, you'd study under different instructors, and everybody, even though we're teaching the same thing, it's going to be different because we're all different. He goes, Leo's 5'4", and you know, you're like 5'11". It's going to be different the way you're brought up, and you will always add a piece of you that's going to be different and nobody else can. Your understanding and the way you regurgitate. He even proved it. Like, look at that form that he's doing right there. Now, this is when I found out. See, I studied from 6 different first-generation instructors of the same system underneath each one before I finally met the Grandmaster. And in so doing, every one of them was different, but they were all teaching the same thing. We all had the same nomenclature of the things that we were doing, but there were differences. And that's because we're all different. One form that everybody copied, he goes, I taught it that way. Everybody's doing it this way. But this guy told me, you know, that's not the way it's supposed to be done, right? The way you're explaining it. So what is? And he explained it differently. He goes, how do you know that? Well, the guy that Leo was trying to correct was 6'5". So every time he told him to strike this way, he would always compensate. So example, easy way to explain that is if I have you strike, use the clock from angle 1 o'clock to 7 o'clock. That's a diagonal strike, right? Downward diagonal strike. Keep on going. 111, 111. The guy would always end up doing a 3 o'clock to 9, a horizontal instead of a diagonal. So finally he goes, okay, it's fine. I'm going to overcome it. Strike 12 to 6. Straight down. And then the guy would do a 1 to 7. So there's a compensation. But for him, he thinks it's a 12 to 6 to do this. Yeah. No, it's actually a 1 to 7. But for you, it's a 12 to 6.
Nice. That is cool.
So that was the beauty of what it was. It's about understanding what you're doing, not knowing. And I love that because we can copy each other. We can know how to do things. But if you don't understand it, you're limited.
Right.
And your understanding can come from 3 different, so many ways. You're either the receiver, a feeder, or an observer. And your understanding of things will be different. That's why I love meeting with people and learning from different people. What's your understanding of this form? What's your understanding of this technique? Ooh, interesting. The process that I learned is called the thought-provoking process.
Okay.
It's not the spoon-feeding processes that a lot of classical martial arts get, that I used to learn. Here's form number 1, here's form number 2, and it's based on your level of the belt. Because you cannot progress unless you master first, or at least get very proficient with the things for your belt level. Thought-provoking process is, no, you figure it out. I'll show you some stuff. You figure it out. But teacher, I need this. Well, here's the thing. If I feed you fish, I feed you for the day. If I teach you how to fish, you're set for life. Yes. You know how to feed yourself, right? But then the thought-provoking process is this. I give you bits and pieces of the puzzle. Now, in your mind's eye, tell me what you see. I see a horse. I see a cat. I see a dog. Very good. This is a puzzle of a dog, but you saw the horse. You saw the cat. That's yours forever. Wow. So it teaches you to see other things beyond normal perception. And that's very important. Why? Because you won't need the instructor there. You already are given a way of being yourself, of being your own teacher. And that's empowering. Classical martial arts, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong. You're doing it wrong and everything, because I was involved in that. In my Taekwondo, what kick is that? It's a roundhouse cert. What belt is a roundhouse thought? Yellow. Okay, that's the worst I've ever seen. Don't ever let me see you again. You focus on this kick, because that's your belt level. So you're not allowed to be yourself. You can't even do certain strikes. That's illegal, all these things, right? So it was not empowering. Sure, I'm progressing properly and the right way, but I was not empowered. Now, the thought-provoking process empowers you. Why? Because in the end, you are going to have to use this, not your teacher. But if your teacher dies or your teacher has to move away and everything else, what, you're going to stop learning? No, you have to continue learning. And how do you do that? First, you have to have the confidence that you can teach yourself. And that was the gift that I got from some of my teachers that they taught me, even my grandmaster when I went to train with him. And of course, we're Filipinos, right? And we'd have some foreigners going, but he'll talk in our language and everything else. And a lot of them would just look at each other and we're snickering. It was like, why? And we're saying to each other, he's making shit up again. It's true. He is. There's nothing wrong with that.
Nope.
Because once you start to see that, then you start to say, I can do that too.
Mm-hmm.
Now, making up is never wrong. What's to say that any one instructor, if we could keep on going back to the teacher before his teacher, they made it up too someday, one day. What, they came from the heavens knowing all this? Right?
It's all made up. That is cool. So then how long were you there? New Orleans?
I was there for the remainder of my station.
Okay.
3 years, I think, 3 or 4 years.
So then what happened after the military? I know you went into respiratory therapy. Now with that,
I continued doing what I was doing. So one of the things was once my teacher in New Orleans had to move to a different city,
okay,
I continued my training in the military by learning Indonesian martial arts, silat.
Nice.
Because it was so closely related to the Filipino martial arts that I knew. And I had a chance to actually sponsor the Indonesian Air Force in my base. We had Indonesian Air Force officers there. And just so happened, one of them was a silat practitioner.
Nice.
So I studied with him for about a year doing the Indonesian style, Merpati Puti. And it was so funny. Till finally, the day that they had left, they were ready to go back to their country. We were invited to a party. And we went to this party. It was a Filipino party with food and everything's great. And there's some Filipinos. And they asked, oh, well, we heard you do Filipino martial arts. I go, yeah, I do. And I had amnesia. We were all enjoying that. He goes, could you show us some of your movements? Then I just started showing some moves. And it was so funny because my Indonesian instructor looks at me and goes like, you know this all the time? I'm like, well, yeah, I told you I studied other arts, but you never showed us. I want to learn that. It was too late already, right?
Man.
And I'm like, how come you never? I'm like, well, because when I'm with you, I'm a student. You're my teacher. And he goes, no. You should learn student teacher. It's not about the levels. It's about sharing information. You should learn from a beginner. You don't only listen to the teacher. Sometimes the teacher's very good at fighting. He doesn't even know how to teach. Mm-hmm. The student will be the one to ask the questions that you go, oh, make me think. Now you have to defend what the student said with your answer. So you better, and that's why good questions coming from beginners are the best way to learn because you have to defend what it is you're teaching. So my teacher, by the way, never showed us empty hands in New Orleans, a lot of weapons. But he did show us how it could be interpreted as that. So when we were doing the party, there were no weapons there. They were just asking, what would I do if I did this? And I started doing all empty hands, locks, takedowns, everything else. And the guys were blown away. And so was I. Because right after that, I called my teacher. I go, remember all those silat moves and those empty hands you were showing? It just flowed out of me. And you would never teach us that. But you showed us how to do it in the mind's eye. But we were training it with weapons. He goes, yeah, because what do you think moves the weapons? Your hands. You're 10 times faster without a weapon in your hand. You're not worried about the weight. You're not worried about the edge, the indexing of where the edge is so that you cut yourself from the tip to the hand. You're just you. So, of course, your hands are going to be much faster. And I'm like, but it's coming out good. And this is your next level of learning. You have to start teaching. What? I've only been doing this a year and a half. No. By that, teaching is not necessarily mean a promotion. It's part of your learning process. Why? Because now that you're teaching, you're actually projecting what you know. And your students will ask you a question. So now you will not know certain things. And that's where you know where your holes are in your learning. So you have to find out why. Because you have to defend what you're saying. You have to defend what you're teaching.
Nice.
So that was another eye opener. And that's when I started teaching.
That was going to be my next question was how you got into the teaching side of it. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, this is my buddies. My buddies became my classmates. My classmates and my students.
How long was it before you started to develop your own system? And was that a conscious decision or was it something that just happened because of all the training you had?
That happened once I left my system because of the politics.
Okay. There
was politics involved. Mm-hmm. Everybody was always complaining about who's better and who should be teaching and who should be ranked. And it was turning into something that I no longer enjoyed.
Yeah.
I was very close to my instructors. Then the politics of it, because why? I was outshining some of the senior students. Why? How do you say that? Well, I'm the one being asked for seminars, not them. So it bothered them. Mm-hmm. How come you get to be the only one? I don't know. They like what I do. Not my fault. But then they started creating some politics here and a lot of inventions of stories. I'm like, my wife basically came over and goes, look, you're stressed out. Do you know that your martial arts that you do, it's a gift from us? I go, yeah. He goes, no. It's a gift from us. What do you mean by gift? Well, number one, you're never home. You're always doing martial arts. You travel. That's time away from us. But we know you love this. And that is why it is a gift. And if you are going to be miserable with the gift we give you, then we're taking it back. You're not allowed to do martial arts anymore. Wow. So you better find a way to enjoy this or you're not allowed to do it anymore. And that opened my eyes.
That's cool.
I'm being pulled away from the people that I love. And it's to me to enjoy this. And I'm disrespecting that gift that they're giving me by being miserable. By who? Other people? No, martial arts is for me. It's a gift for my family. So I left the organization and I just trusted that I knew what I knew. And if anybody wanted to join me, they could join me. And I just called it Rochester Kali. Generic. I lived in Rochester. Mm-hmm. Let's call it that. And I had my following. But then I started doing seminars again. And then I was being pulled to do seminars outside the country and other different places. That the schools that were inviting me for seminars couldn't call it just Rochester. They wanted my name because for them, so they started calling it Marcaida Kali. Okay. And I told them, no, there's no such thing. No. We want to call it that. Why? Because it's got to be connected to you so that we can get people to pay for seminars to show up. You have that following. You have that name. Nice. So I'm like, okay, then Marcaida Kali it is. But then knowing that it really is an expression that I do, I just show my students how I got to what I do. I use the same training method to do it. But the highest level of Marcaida Kali, I guess your last test is you have to create your own system and call it your own.
Wow.
Because I am not going to fight for you. You are. I did not get you to where you are. You did. You put the time in. I only was a guide. But you will also put into this system of yours yourself. So how can you call it me? It is you. It is your gift. You are not put in this world to carry somebody else's name. You can carry your own. This is your passion. So that's where it is. You can always refer to where you came from. Thank you. Mm-hmm. But this is your journey. And that's the way at least I structure my system.
That's cool. I want you to think back to that very first time when your instructor said you need to start teaching to now. You still teach, you still do seminars. What do you think has changed about your teaching style over the years?
My physicality.
Okay.
I'm not as fast. I'm not as agile as I used to be doing those days. So the way I do things has to evolve, just like my mentality of how the training is. Mm-hmm. Definitely my control and self-control. In those days, I was aggressive. You got to remember, my first style in the first group was Cobra Kai. My teacher was a Cobra Kai guy, right? He was a dick.
Yep.
So I had to change that. I'm so glad once I left the organization, I met from other teachers. Thank God they saved me from that. Because it was all this bravado. It was all this tough guy thing. All the bad things that you don't want your kids learning. That's what I learned.
Yep.
It was a system for assholes because the people teaching me were assholes.
Mm-hmm.
But they were also people who also didn't understand the responsibility in what they were doing. They really didn't get it. I didn't get it. And I started to pass that on to my students too at the time. The aggression, the false bravado, the macho crap. That's what was taught to me, and I'm passing that on too. That we are the best. We got knives. You have the cheat and the key. We have the double L. That's what my teacher always says. The double L's, we put the kill. The key, double L, kill. We kill while you chill. It's stupid stuff like that.
Wow.
Yeah. And here's the thing. He would even create fights for us. I'm like, you know what? I'm looking back and I'm like, yeah. So why is that? Well, here's probably a lot of people who've never been in the face of true violence. Because those in true violence who've crossed that line never want to talk about it again. I didn't find this out until I started studying from other people who I knew were true, let's say real fighters, I guess. Mm-hmm. People who crossed the line, being in the military and all that, and gangsters. There's no martial art in gangsters. That's why they're gangsters.
Yeah.
That's why they hurt people. But I had uncles who were. And I say uncles freely, as in that's what we call them. Because his son was my classmate. But I always knew there was something about this man who would show up and he would laugh. He goes like, martial arts. And he was like, I want my son not to be like me. I'm like, but you're the one with the real life. Yeah. You think people and killers and all those guys, you think they do martial arts? Bullshit. That's what we have no self-control.
Mm-hmm.
and we will not fight you. You're a martial artist. You probably are more skilled than us. We'll shake your hand later on and stab you. We'll have our friends do it. We have money. That's why you're like, whoa, this guy is not honorable here, but he's real. And that's why I want my son to learn this. Why? Because he can control himself. And back home, they find out you're a martial artist, they'll challenge you. So you keep your mouth shut. And because you open your mouth, now we're going to ambush you.
Wow.
So nobody is bulletproof. Nobody. I don't care what your skills are. Let's look at it this way. How many famous martial artists we knew were great fighters were killed by knives and guns? Many I can think of. Many. Where's all their skill? Nobody's bulletproof. So instead of having this false set of bravado that I can fight in the ring and it works, it's equal to the street. Now you realize I don't even want to fight, period. I got a life to live. And that's where martial arts, the true meaning of martial arts starts to come into you. How can I use the ideas of evading, of don't fight fire with fire, use your energy against it? How can I use that in everyday life? Because people ask me, have you ever used your martial arts? I go, hell yes. Every day of my waking hour, I use martial arts because I live it. And martial arts isn't about the use of that. That's pretty much where I lost. Why? I didn't have self-control. I could have walked away. What? You walked away? You know what you can do to them? Yeah, I've learned to fight my ego. My ego's the one getting me into fights.
Mm-hmm.
He's just called me a name. You think I'm going to give up everything I have for a name? And of course, now especially, I'm in the media. I'm a target.
Yeah.
You make challenges I get all the time. I just laugh it off. I'm going, yeah, okay. Well, I bet you I'll beat you and everything. Oh, good. You win. You win. I have nothing to prove. You win. You're better. Absolutely. Yes. Nice. And that's what I learned from martial arts.
That's great.
That it's nothing more than words. You don't have to prove anything. Are you happy where you are? And are your actions going to match the consequences, or are they worth the consequences? Mm-hmm. And these are the things that martial arts has taught me. What's worth it and what's truly not.
So you mentioned being a media personality. So kind of talk about how that started. How did the TV show start, and how did your involvement happen with that?
Okay, so while I was doing my martial arts and respiratory therapy, a lot of my students who came to me were actually instructors in other fields of practice, right? Okay. I had law enforcement guys. So through that, I started doing defensive tactics, and I had military guys who were contractors, and they wanted me to bring in military combatives, edge impact weapon combatives. And I was doing seminars. It got to the point to where some of our clients actually had offered a very lucrative deal that would afford me to actually quit my job and teach this as a living.
Wow.
Overseas, right? Mm-hmm. And I brought my team. I had a team, my students. I involved everyone. They quit their jobs as law enforcement guys, and all this to do this contract. What happened was, before we left, the facility that they were building, because it was exclusive, it was not in the gym, nothing like that. Because I was doing military contracting too. We do not teach in the gym. You do not put my art beside empty hand fighting. We're weapons. Knife fighting. No, you don't knife fight in the gym. Where do you shoot your guns? In the range? Well, my knife is as good as a gun. It'll kill too. I'm going to teach in the range. The facility wasn't ready, so Fortune Fire appeared. They were looking at the videos that I did on YouTube, and they liked what they saw. I tested well on the Zoom meeting, and they were looking for an end user because they already had a master smith, then they had a weapons, reproduction maker, and then I was going to be the end user. And that's when they found me. And it was just a much better thing to do because I didn't have to leave the country. I was lucky that they got picked up for more and more. It became something else different. I was very lucky to be able to transition to Fortune Fire, because doing what I do, teaching who I was going to teach, put you in a dark place. And I was getting burned out from that because I didn't want that feeling anymore. And I got lucky and truly was able to do what I do with a more responsive or a different flavor, right? Because you start to develop this imposter syndrome. You're talking about doing all these things, but you're not downrange or working with the people who actually do them. But when you work with them, you have to put yourself in the same mindset as they are. And that's not nice.
Wow. And how long have you been doing the show now?
Oh, we're 10 years.
Wow.
A little bit closer to 11. 2015 is when it came out.
That is cool. And when did you start designing knives?
While I was teaching martial arts. So,
okay.
Because I call it the cycle of knife, like cycle of life, right? First, you learn how to overcome your fear in it, and you learn how to use it to defend, and you learn how to use it to be offensively. And then you start designing your knives according to what you think you can do with it. And that's what I started doing. I happened to have a bladesmith connection in the Philippines that was phenomenal. He could he could make anything based on me sending pictures.
Mm-hmm.
So I would draw something, and I had another friend of mine who was in Hong Kong. We were buddies at this. And he had a way of putting it in CAD form. So I was just emailing him drawings. He'd put it in, a CAD form. We sent it to the guy. Next thing you know, it's made.
Wow.
And it was affordable. That's a beautiful thing. It was affordable, right?
Yeah.
Now looking back, it's junk from Fortune Fire's stand, but it was affordable.
Yeah. That's cool, though.
I wouldn't say junk. I would say that, of course, the quality of steel wasn't the best, But, I mean, the ability of this guy to just make it from drawings, and that's what we would have. We would have blades for my students. I would be creative. And then later on, as I started teaching, I'd get into a special contract with the military that it was posted to me by the unit we were teaching. It goes, what do you carry? Oh, no, we could use this. No, what do you carry? Oh, we could, and I didn't get it then. They go, you're here to teach us a specific, system of yours to do it with edge impact weapons.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you making us choose what edge impact weapons are available? Why don't you have your own line? Ooh, good idea. Let me find out how to do this.
Nice.
And that was a start.
As a weapons expert, what is the main difference, for someone who maybe doesn't know a lot about knives, walk into like a Walmart and buy a knife for $40 versus, spending $200 on a high quality knife? What's the main difference? Is it the material? What is it?
Well, first and foremost is, what are you using it for?
Mm-hmm.
What's the difference between an expensive knife and a cheap knife? The fact that you don't want to drop your expensive knife.
Yeah.
Your expensive knife is probably going to collect dust. Are you an end user? And that's the big thing. If you're going to be buying blades that are very high end in quality, it's because you have an attachment to it. And sometimes these attachments are more so as a collector than they are for a user. People have their specific knives to buy. You use it. And of course, as a user now, if you buy a cheap blade, it's always breaking. It's always, but that shows that you are a user, and you start to buy better quality because you use it all the time. So you want the better quality. I always look at the feel of the blade. What am I buying this blade for? And then I pick it up and I want to see how I actually works in my hands. How does it perform? Is the edge chipping when I use it? Is the handle comfortable? Does it fit me when I'm using it? So it's really about you being an educated end user that makes you realize if I should spend money on this or if I should just, use something that's cheap. The thing that you find with the cheap blades is they don't last as long.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have good blades, they last better. They last longer. So, but you do have to educate yourself.
Yeah. And then what's the main difference? Like on your website, I'm looking, you have things that are specifically detailed as a trainer.
So one of the things I've learned is that it's better to have a trainer if you're learning edge weapons because Band-Aids can cost a lot. You're working with edges, right? But also you should have something that's safer. Now, people, what they do, and what I used to do in the beginning, I used to buy cheaper blades because I couldn't afford, nobody really made traders in those days. So I'd buy the same kind of knife because I wanted to have the same feel, same kind of knife, but I would just dull the steel. That'll kill you. Dull blades will kill you.
Yep.
You need something soft like aluminum. You need or wood or rubber or hard plastic, hard resin, so that you can train. But I like the way steel feels, so I really like the feel of aluminum. But aluminum is soft metal, so it'll chip if you go metal to metal. It's great for contact to the body. Wood will splinter. Hard resin seems to be a way to go, but they're also too light. It doesn't give you the same weight as that of steel.
Okay.
So I use different things because that's why I call it edge impact. So I'm basically training with a dull blade. That's still an impact weapon.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of some of the things that I have is if you have that blade, you should have a trainer of what you carry too, if it is meant for the martial arts style of using weapons.
Okay. And just so people know, I'm looking at your website, what can they find? I'm seeing knives, I'm seeing training videos. What else can people find on your website?
On my website, you will find the knife designs all the knives that I've designed, except for the K-Bar Big Brother. That's with K-Bar.
Okay.
I have hoodies, clothing, stuff that I have fun with. I've got my bracers. So a little bit of everything that pretty much just interests me. I'm a creative person and I like to create stuff to have fun with. So when you go there to the website, you'll have bracers that I use on the show that turn out to be slapjacks. You have keychains. You have a lot of different things. Just come through the website and have fun and let your imagination go wild with what you can do with the stuff in there.
Cool. And that's just dougmarcaida.com, and I will definitely put a link out when the episode comes out so people can check that out. A lot of good stuff on here. You guys will enjoy looking through here. So in all your years of martial arts, is there one philosophy that's at the top of your list?
The one philosophy that I always say is it's not about how many you hurt, it's about how many you protect.
Nice.
Everyone should take martial arts because you need the ability to protect. Here's one thing I learned from different instructors, but one particular one. So I obviously came from that Cobra Kai, right?
Mm-hmm.
How many knives do you carry with you? Oh, we carry 3, and other people. So I have more to feed, all this thing. Then my other instructor that I studied from, who was from that same system, but pretty much moved away from it. And he goes, man, they're all nutcases in there that you study from. I'll bet you carry more than 3 knives. And I bet you make your students do the same. I go, yeah. Oh my gosh, what am I doing? I go, Doug, if they end up doing that, do you care for their soul? Oh, you're right. Wow. Wait a minute. Okay. Then I learned from a different instructor who told me this. Doug, you a good person? He goes, I try to be. You want to go out and kill anybody with the knives you have? No. Okay, so let me ask you this. Let not the lack of ability to set things right prevent you from doing what is right. If you had 5 men there raping a woman or about to hurt them, and you're going to go there with your kickboxing, grappling, empty hands, one of them knows how to fight. What you going to do with the other 4? Oh, okay. Now, you have a knife, clean house, because you can clean house.
Nice.
You can do what's right. That's why arming yourself doesn't mean that you're a bad person.
Mm-hmm.
It means that you have the capability of doing what is right. You have the ability to make a difference.
That's cool.
And let's be real. Your empty hands ain't going to do it.
Yeah.
But a tool which makes us better than the animals is a force multiplier. And that's what I always believe in what I do. It's not a matter of what I learn, everything. It's what I can use it for. And I can use it for the good, then good. And it's the same thing as what Krav Maga schools have, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's, how does it go? Good guys doing bad things to bad guys. I love that.
Yeah, that's cool. I like it.
But you have to have that ability. You have to educate yourself. You can't expect on anybody else to take care of you or protect you. You have to be able to do that. Everyone has to have that. And it's a confidence builder. That's when you are no longer sheep, right?
Yeah.
You have to be the shepherd up there. You have to be the one that can take care of everything else. And that's what martial art does. And it's not necessarily limited to you doing that to set things right in a bad way. It's you doing what you need to do to set things in a good way. You can't protect if you can't protect, and it's the same thing that I learned being in the military, right?
Mm-hmm.
Freedom is not free.
Yeah. All right. How about worst martial arts related injury?
Martial art related, me cutting myself with my own blade.
I was going to actually ask you how many times you've done that.
No, okay. So while on the show, never.
Okay.
While outside the show, when I disrespected the weapon, did I finally get cut? What was that? I was at a festival and I had a meet and greet. And I'm a sucker for families. Okay. Mm-hmm. I'm a family man. Now, it was a long line. So what was supposed to be a 1-hour meet and greet turned into 5 hours in the heat. Signing. Doug, you're supposed to go to the testing thing, cutting demo. And I'm looking at the line, still like a long, like a 2-hour line. Oh my God, I told everybody, I got to do this testing. Please just stay here. I'll be right back. Mm-hmm. And I rushed it. I didn't follow the protocols. So I picked up a weapon and I did my cut. And then something in the back of me goes, let's get fancy. Let's do a 2-handed cut, 2 weapons in one hand. Now, first off, I'm picking up weapons I've never picked up before. I picked up one with my left hand that I just grabbed from there, a big buoy. They were both buoys. I just picked it up and let me do an X cut, right? Like that, boom, and I cut my hand so clean. And kids, this is why you don't rush.
Wow.
This is why we follow the protocols. This is why you pay attention to what's going on. And that was a big lesson, which I needed to have. I was blessed that my hand didn't get cut off.
Yeah.
I was blessed, but I also needed to be reminded that don't ever get complacent. Don't ever disrespect a weapon. There's a reason why they're created for that. And no matter how many times you do it, you have to be careful. You have to follow the protocols. And I needed to be reminded of that.
Okay. All right. What are your thoughts on something like MMA and the UFC? And is that something you're a fan of?
I am a big fan of it.
Nice.
I am a big fan of the sport.
Mm-hmm.
I am not a fan of the attitudes.
Yeah.
I am not a fan of the bravado and the way they conduct themselves as athletes to be able to get more views. That's where martial arts is lost. That's why I say, when I see them conduct them that way, you're an athlete.
Yeah.
You're not a martial artist. Is the way you talk about it. And downing other arts and everything else. Look, people don't need martial arts to be violent. Martial arts probably makes it better. Martial arts is what really controls you. And that is the only one thing why I get turned off. From it. I'm old school. I still want to go back to the martial arts because I know, and you know, here's one thing I love about it, right? MMA is really one of those things that truly is a tried and tested sport. A tried and tested sport. I say that because not everybody are athletes. I love going to martial art festivals where you will look at people who are not fit, who are not athletes, who are doing forms that aren't even perfect kicks and everything else. Then I see these athletes who go, I'll kick his ass. It's so easy. Oh my God, look at that. I can't even throw a punch. And I was looking at him and goes, and yeah, you can throw a punch, you can kick, you can choke out. You're very good at it. But you see that guy over there, the one that you call that's never been in a fight, who's really out of shape and all this, he's a better father. He probably is a better brother. He's a good standing person in the community, 10 times more than I would probably praise compared to an athlete here who just looks down on everybody because they can fight.
Yeah.
Here's one thing that was taught to me once when I was in my old days with my bravado. The same thing as this guy, because I saw myself there. I did a demonstration and I had this tough talk, right? Yeah, ball, kill, ball, with a knife, you know. Old man approaches me after, goes, "You're very skilled, Doug." I go, "Oh, thank you. You like what I do?" "Yeah. But you see, sir, I have a finger." I go, "Oh, great. What's this?" He pulled the finger. And he goes, "That means I can shoot you. Are you bulletproof? But here's even a better thing, Doug. I'm rich. I can have you killed." So while I see a very skillful person here, I think you should really focus on fixing your character.
That's great.
How do you think I felt?
Yeah. Wow.
What? And this old man walks away. And then I find out, who is this guy? He's a known guy. Boy, I am not bulletproof. But a lesson learned. Thank you, sir.
Wow.
A lesson in humility. A lesson in, you're very tough with your weapons and everything else. Probably never killed anybody, huh? Because if you did, you'd shut up. And that goes for your instructors too, who keep on making it loud, you know, and he goes, empty drum make a lot of noise. And that's why going through my continued journey of working with martial artists, working with gangsters, people who've really been in there, the ones who've truly crossed that line are quiet, not the loud ones. And that really put things into perspective. Do I want to be a functional person in society, enjoying the martial arts to uplift me and uplift people that I love? Or am I going to be a Cobra Kai that makes a lot of noise and I don't even care about the people that I'm teaching? And then the one day that they actually do it for the wrong reasons, how am I going to feel? Do I care about their soul? And I love that. I remember that one thing when it was supposed to be this way. Your teacher does not care about your soul. Always talking about fighting. I'll bet you he's never fought in his life. And we're talking fighting. It's not fighting. We're talking about weapons here. That means killing.
Wow.
So,
and it's kind of crazy you keep bringing that up, the Cobra Kai thing, because not my very first instructor, but my first Taekwondo instructor when I was in college, I literally tell everyone he was my John Kreese. He drove me to the point that I hated martial arts and was ready to quit before someone recommended a new instructor to me. He was that bad of an instructor. So I definitely get where you're coming from with that.
Yeah, and isn't it like makes you really think? So here's one thing I learned from my students. So I was teaching a kid, a guy, not a kid. He came in and trained with him, but he had a blog when blogs first came out, right? So I went to visit his blog, and he goes, "I finally got to train with this guy, and it's because I know, because he was from Japanese arts, and I know when he came to class, we showed him up. We scared the daylights out of this guy." Because we were aggressive, right? And when he wrote about it, it's like, I get it. It's very aggressive. It's very scary, but I don't get it. We come to class to learn how to fight and kill. I don't get it. And later on, I thought, snowflake. What do you mean don't get it? You want spirituality? Well, you go to church. You want to learn how to fight? You come to us. That kind of mentality, right? Years later on, I finally get it. I go, how is it that you're teaching the act of violence without ever talking about how you should prevent it from happening to begin with? We have the before, during, and after. We're always just doing the during. What happened to the after? The consequences of your actions. What you're doing, why'd you get to fight? And then the before, now that we're aware, why did you try to prevent it from anything? Why are we just coming to class to learn how to fight? And I'm like, what? I get it. I get it, because I'm not teaching the responsibility behind it. I'm not teaching that what you are learning right now is nothing more than an act so that you will learn how to be aware that it does happen and how to prevent from ever using it. But you also have to learn how to use it responsibly. I get it now. And that came from someone who I thought was a snowflake because he came to class and he didn't know why we're so violent. No, he was the teacher. I needed to be the student.
That's great. All right. I have a few fun questions we use to wrap up the show. Now we were just talking a little bit about MMA. So let's say you decided you were going to step into the octagon and fight. What song would play as your walk? What's your walk-up song going to be?
I Can't Smile Without You by Barry Manilow.
I love it. That's so great. You're definitely the first. You're definitely the first person to pick Barry Manilow. I love it.
Oh no! So I used to be part of this tactical group, and there's another gentleman known as Instructor Zero, and he's phenomenal with firearms. And we were visiting in Italy, and sure enough, when we were filming it, he just was blasting. I had my headphones. I was just enjoying the serene beauty of Italy, and he's listening to Miley Cyrus, right? I came in like a record. So the guy's filming it and looking at it. Was so funny because this is Instructor Zero, right? And then he goes, I just smiled. And then he goes, what are you listening to? Like, you don't want to know what he's listening. He pulled it, Barry Manilow. Like, you're worse.
That's awesome.
Look, I've got ADD. I've got everything where the RPM in my cells are going so fast. I need mellow. I need mellow to calm me down.
That is great. I love it.
That's what I grew up listening to.
This one doesn't have to be 4. I've had people give as few as 2 and as many as like 7 or 8, but maybe 3, 4, 5 names that you would put on your personal Mount Rushmore of martial arts.
Of course. When talking about martial arts, you have to mention Bruce Lee.
Nice.
I just mentioned him. I didn't pick him. No, I'm kidding. I read that somewhere. It was funny. No, Bruce Lee, of course. I grew up with. The guy's phenomenal. Then, of course, in the Filipino martial arts, the one I emulate as one of the legends is Dan Inosanto.
Love Dan, yeah.
The man is an encyclopedia of martial arts, not just Filipino martial arts, but it's the way he carries himself.
Yeah.
Then, when it comes down to a martial artist that I truly believe are one of the ones that I call the real deals is Fred Mastro.
Okay.
And those are the 3 that I really look up to. And of course, then my teachers that taught me how to look at Filipino martial arts from not a technical way, but all about. So it was interesting. Tom Bizio is probably the best Filipino martial artist I've ever studied under or have seen. But he is a Filipino martial artist that teaches it from a Chinese martial arts point of view because he's a Chinese martial art medicine. But he taught me Filipino martial art from that point of view. He goes like, yeah. When I first met him, I was already an established instructor. He goes, you're very fast. You're like a mosquito. But you don't know power. You're not grounded. Huh? Like the problem is you're so into the technicals of the technique, you don't realize what wields and makes a technique work, the body. You need to learn how to be grounded. And he was a Xingyi and Bagua practitioner. So he educated me. That's how I changed. That's why people after that go, wow, are you advanced in that system? I never seen that kind of moves. I'm like, advanced? No, I changed everything because I found out they were bad habits. I'm slower because of that. I'm not grounded because of this and all that. So Tom Bizio was definitely up there. And then the one teacher that truly saved me from the Cobra Kai mentality is Guru Jun De Leon. Okay. We were training together with the military. And he pulled me aside at the end of the day because he saw it was getting to my head. I was like a pit bull that he slapped around. He goes like, stop it. You're a family man. We're not killers. We're not in the military anymore. You're not in the military anymore. We're here to teach them the skill, but we are not who they are. And you have to always remind yourself of that because I was going crazy.
Nice.
I had to be pulled back from that light.
That's cool. No, and I've never met Dan. I've always wanted to meet Dan. The few times I've tried, it just hasn't worked out. But I had Diana on the show, and I had his son-in-law Ron was also on the show. But I've never
Ron, yeah,
Ron was fun.
Ron studied under Edgar too. I met Ron a couple of times. Ron is one of the. He's just as amazing as his father-in-law.
Yeah. That's cool. I'm hoping Dan was just here in Minnesota a couple months ago doing a seminar, and I could not get out of work. But I'm hoping if he comes back next summer, I'm going to plan farther ahead and spend the weekend training.
You do Taekwondo.
That's my core system. So I started in Tong Sudo when I was 10. I did Shotokan when I was in high school. And in college, I got in traditional Taekwondo and Aikido. And then I moved to California in 96, 97 and studied American Kempo. But my core system, I've been training with my current instructor since 1994 in traditional Taekwondo.
Traditional Taekwondo?
Yeah. And we do the sport side too, but they definitely focus more on tradition. We do, like most of the sport ones are like 80%, 90% feet, 10% hands. We're 50-50. We also incorporate grappling. We incorporate Hapkido. Mm-hmm. We do weapons. I've trained in, nunchuck.
One of the traditional Korean arts that I really was exposed to, I never got to study, was Kiptugi. And that was something, hardcore.
We have a little bit of it blended, and we actually have some Kiptugi techniques. But I don't know a lot about the art. But yeah, he's my instructor. He's one who's very, like my John Kreese. He's one who actually tried to forbid us from training in other styles. When he found out I was taking Aikido, he basically threatened me. And my other instructor is like, no, you want more training? I mean, judo, boxing, whatever. We actually used to. A couple of years in a row, we did this big, huge open martial arts weekend at his gym where we invited, I think it was like 15 different styles over the 2 days where people could come in and learn from different styles. We had
that's how that's how I grew. My instructor goes, you need to leave and study other arts. I'm like, what? I love what I'm doing with you. He goes, no. You need to leave so you can appreciate what I've been teaching you.
Exactly.
Because there's a lot of crap out there. I want you to study those.
That's a good instructor.
It was a joke, obviously, but he goes like, you don't know what you got under me right now.
Yeah.
I want you to go out there and study other things, and then you come back. And it was true. I came back to him like, yes, I learned from other things, but I knew the strengths of what he did for me. I knew this was good. I knew it. That's why I wouldn't mind traveling. I mean, I used to travel 6 hours one way.
Wow.
Study for 2. And drive 6 hours back again.
Wow.
That beat my 6 hours training, because when I was doing that in New Orleans, that was like an hour and a half drive from my base. And I trained for 6 and drive back. No, try driving 6 hours, train for 2 and 6 hours back.
That's crazy.
And I did that for almost 2 years.
Wow.
I knew what I had.
Yeah.
And the teacher who was teaching me didn't want to teach what he was teaching me. He thought I would quit. And but he was a man of his word. He goes, I'm not, he thought, 6 hours away. Good luck coming here. Yeah, sure, I'll teach you. Until the very last page of my notebook, he promised me. So we did that. It took about almost 2 years. And then when we were done with it, as soon as he closed that notebook, he goes, we're done.
Wow.
I'm like, what? I'm addicted to training for you. I don't know. We're done. Now it's your turn to find other things. He goes, Doug, the problem is you keep on going for the Holy Grail. The Grail is the journey. There's no such cup. Okay. How much of what I've taught you have you mastered? No, I'll tell you. None of it, because I see you. Now you keep on wanting to learn more stuff and more stuff and more stuff. What you have is enough. Master what you have.
That's cool.
Yeah. That's why it's worth traveling 6 hours.
And I have one who's about 3.5 to 4 hours away. I'd love to go train with. Like you said, once my daughter graduates, I can maybe try to go down there once a month.
Exactly.
Well, do you know Rick Fay?
Yes.
Yeah, Rick Fay.
From right there, Minnesota.
Yep, exactly. He's about 3.5 hours away from me. So he was on the show too. That's why I met him.
Cool. Say hello for me.
I will do that. Yeah, he's actually the one who hosted Dan Inosanto's seminar this past summer that I couldn't make it to.
So Rick does a lot with Inosanto and Pikiti Tertia, so he knows my Cobra Kai friends.
Nice. That's cool.
No, but thank God he's a little bit leaning towards the Inosanto way.
Yeah, I've never met him in person, but he seemed like a really good guy when I got to chat with him. So
they have a very good group there.
Next question: how about a favorite martial arts book?
There is one. Oh. Well, okay. The one that got me started out was Absorb What's Useful by Dan Inosanto, because it opened my mind from seeing classical over practical. But there is another one, The Book of Martial Science by Steve Perlman.
Okay.
What I love about that is Steve is basically breaking down everything that you have in a scientific way. It's not about a specific martial arts. It's about the science of martial arts.
Okay.
So the Book of Martial Science, I really enjoyed it because, he breaks down like what makes the technique work. Ain't about the Kung Fu punch or Taekwondo punch or Karate or Kali strike. It's a linear attack, and this is how the science looks at it. So I enjoyed that.
Okay.
Helps me explain. It made me go to the root of what works and not all the styles, the stylistic stuff and everything else. This is what makes it work.
I will have to look at that one. I've never heard of. I'll have to look that one up.
I wonder if it's still in print. He had a video out too, but he's coming up with another book. I enjoy Steve a lot. He's one of the guys who actually opened my mind, opened my eyes to different ways of doing martial arts. You should have him on your show, actually.
I'll have to reach out to him. I found one called The Book of Martial Power.
Yes.
Is that it, maybe?
Sorry.
Okay.
Martial Power.
Yeah. It was printed in 2006. It looks like it might still be available. Yeah.
Yeah,
they have it.
I recommend you read. Okay, you want someone who would be great on your show to talk? Steve's one of them.
Okay.
Very, very well spoken. Very, very knowledgeable about martial arts. He was the one who actually helped me understand what martial arts was about.
Okay.
I used to go to his festivals. He had that open festival in Saratoga Martial Arts where it was all kinds of styles, right?
Mm-hmm.
He attended a festival we had in Rochester, saw me, brought me in for his skills, and we were the dark cloud. Everyone else who had their karate uniforms, we showed up in black tactical. We had a dark energy about us. We wanted to show everybody off and be the scary thing, and we accomplished that. But when I was there, the white light shined over our darkness, and I started to open up a little bit. That's when I realized we're a bunch of jerks, guys. We got to change our look.
Wow.
That's when I realized it's better not stop, looking around and trying to gauge yourself over everybody else. Like where you open up and truly understand what martial arts was about. That's why I always went to his festivals, because it was a recharge of what true martial arts is about. It wasn't about the fight. It wasn't about that darkness. It was about the light. And when I went over there, I would laugh with people, and that's the same thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was there with people who made me a better person in society, just like they were. They weren't the athletes who wanted to fight all the time.
Yeah.
And that felt so good. We talk about that a lot. Every time I talk to Steve, we always talk, because I owe that to him.
Yeah.
He was one of the influences or people put into my life that showed me a better path.
Cool. If I can get a hold of him, I will definitely invite him on the show.
I'll text you his number.
I appreciate it. All right. Now this one, it's about 50-50. So a lot of my guests don't have an answer, but we're close to the same age, so you might. Do you have a favorite martial arts video game? Did you ever get into gaming?
Never could. So I'll go with Mortal Kombat, only because I got to play it a couple of times.
Okay.
It's so funny because I was just I'd say 2 years ago, I was in filming the Fortune Fire in Latin America, their version of Fortune Fire. And one of the judges is a gamer. He just bought Mortal Kombat. He knew all the moves, and we go to his room. We were playing, and I didn't know moves. I just knew how to move very fast with my fingers. And I was winning everything. Oh, you play all the time. No, I just fast with my fingers. I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
That's great. Nice.
But not much of a gamer.
Okay, that's cool. All right. How about a favorite martial arts TV show?
TV show? Let's talk about, I can't really think of TV show. I will say this, movie-wise, my favorite martial art movie. How about that?
Yeah, that's the next question. So yeah, go ahead.
All right. Okay, TV show. Okay, let's go with TV show. Trying to think. Interesting. Was there ever martial arts on TV?
I mean, we got going back to like Kung Fu, in the 70s.
Yeah, then it would have to be the David Carradine Kung Fu series. That I enjoyed watching.
Okay, but I mean, for that one, we get anything from you get like Sidekicks from the 80s, The Master, Highlander, Walker Texas Ranger, Cobra Kai.
I enjoyed Highlander a lot. Of course, weapons based. Who wouldn't?
Oh yeah, nice. Yeah, I actually had Adrian Paul on the show, so yeah, that was a fun interview.
So that was amazing. I enjoyed the idea of Highlander.
Yeah,
but I started out with Kung Fu with David Carradine.
Okay, cool. All right, now next one. Favorite martial arts movie?
I still watch it because I go to sleep with it, and it's The Last Samurai.
Oh, I love that movie so much. I think
soundtrack,
Tom Cruise's best movie, hands down.
I think so. Because I still watch it up to the whole feeling of it, the whole zen.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that I'm looking for in martial arts, I found there. There is the skill, there is the act of violence, but there is also the reason and the responsibility of why I'm violent. There is the moment of zen after doing what you do, and you see it in your mind's eye. The too much mind. And then the soundtrack. I trained to that soundtrack.
Nice.
Because it feels good. And that moment of facing your fear when she was dressing him in his uniform, knowing that he may not come back alive.
Yep.
There's so much in that movie I can watch over and over and over again and never, ever be bored. I'll honestly say I've seen it over 100 times.
Wow. I don't know if I've seen it quite that many, but I've seen it a lot. I definitely love that one. So.
Mm-hmm.
Mine's always The Karate Kid, just because that's the one that got me into martial arts in '84. So one I've easily seen over probably 200 times. So.
I have a fondness for that because that's when I came to the U.S. That summer that Karate Kid was here. It's the first time I migrated to the U.S.
That's cool. Okay.
It's funny because I just met Sean Kanan recently.
Super nice
where
guy.
We were talking because hopefully we get to work together. You should have him on your show too.
He was in my first year. He was one of my first 30 guests.
That is cool. He's got this bad boy hot sauce coming out.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I've had, I think, five or six from the Karate Kid universe on that show. I've had Sean Kanan. Nice. I had Sensei Fumio Demura. I had Ron Thomas. I had.
How fun!
Yeah. I've been lucky. I'd love to get love to get William Zabka. I have a request out, but so far no luck. But he'd be fun to talk to also.
Well, keep at it.
Oh, I will.
Got me here.
That's right. All right. Final question. This one does not have to be a martial arts movie. Any movie you've ever seen, favorite movie fight scene?
Anything
Anything
the fight
goes.
scenes from Ong Bak 2.
Oh, nice.
The timing of what Tony Jaa does. So this is, or I would go with Raid Redemption. It's those two. Only it's because I'm not a big fan of Kung Fu Chopsaki stuff when you're flying with wires and everything else, or it's too choreographed. Ong Bak's timing, what Tony Jaa does, and same thing with Raid Redemption, is the time. I understand those moves. Mm-hmm. I get it, especially with a Raid Redemption with Silat. I understand them. So to see them in action and the timing of its use, I enjoy it. I'm like, I get that. I truly get that.
Yeah.
So yeah, in terms of martial skill and the timing, man, I'm still in awe with that, especially the second one.
Before I let you go, is there anything I forgot to ask you, or that we just want to be sure we get out there before we wrap it up?
No, I think this is fun. A lot of fun to do. I haven't, actually done an interview strictly about the martial arts.
Oh, I'm honored to be the first.
It's one of those things that I enjoy talking about these things, because I think the act of violence and everything and the stigma that martial artists get, we need to explain ourselves. Not all of us always have the greatest intentions of being a martial artist in the beginning, but it is what saved me. Martial arts saved me. It is what changed my, it's always, we talk about honor, integrity, and respect. I didn't have that starting out. Mm-hmm. It was something that was taught into me that I got to do in the rest of my martial arts. Should make you better in life, not bitter. Let me say that again. Martial arts should make you better in life, not bitter. How many martial artists are that are bitter because of the politics, because of the insecurities of fighting and all this? And they're bitter.
Yeah. And
how about those that are at peace? They're better.
I like it. Well, Doug, seriously, this has been a complete honor. Like I said, a long time coming. I'm glad we made it work, and it's been such a blast talking to you, and I can't wait to get the episode out.
Awesome. Send me a link.
Thanks for listening to Everyday Martial Artist. We hope you will join us every week for a brand new episode with a different martial artist telling their story. If you enjoy the show, be sure to leave us a review. Also, be sure to check out our website at everydaymartialartist.com. There you can find all of our episodes and contact us to suggest guests and ask questions. Again, thanks for listening to Everyday Martial Artist, and we'll see you next week.